Hello and welcome to Business India with me Tarun. India's trade with United States has risen to well above $105 billion. Even among a global sluggish scenario in the global trade, Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said recently at the India-United States of America Strategic and Commercial Dialogue, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Barack Obama have set an ambitious target of bilateral trade to around $500 billion. With new sectors like defense and railways open for foreign investment, where is the India-US trade relationship headed? Joining me on the discussion are former Foreign Secretary Shashank, Ambassador Bhaskar Balakrishnan and Sheetal Sharma, International Affairs expert with the Jawaharlal Nehru University. I'll start with Shashank for his opening comment.
Well, India and US have been old trade partners. Ever since India moved towards opening up its economy, chances have brightened very much for increasing the bilateral trade between the US and India. And I think the big change came when the American administration agreed to remove sanctions against many of the Indian products, high technology goods. And therefore, now this situation has come up where India and USA can look forward to exchanges of the highest technology between the two countries. America is thinking in terms of manufacturing many of their high technology items, including in defense areas in India. So I think there are possibilities, and this is really when what Nirmala Sitharaman is saying is on the basis of the agreements which have been reached between India and US, and we should be able to reach these targets easily. Only thing is that yes, there are some issues at the domestic level where we have not been able to put our act together, which we need to do.
Okay, I'm going across to Bhaskar Balakrishnan. Ambassador Balakrishnan, what are your opening comment for today's discussion?
Well, I think the trade, overall trade with the US picture looks bright and promising, especially in the light of recent developments. With the US, we have a surplus of trade on manufactured on goods, and also a huge surplus of trade in services. So we are very well poised to take advantage of the US market, even with the level of present day manufacturing in India. There is also a technology component in the US relationship which is very important. The US is the source of advanced technology. They are on the threshold of a new digital manufacturing era, which will, if it comes through, will bring back a lot of manufacturing back to the US. The old value chain business of using cheaper labor in other countries will no longer be valid as industries in the US transition to digital manufacturing increasingly using robots and mechanical systems. So we are in a very exciting stage of our economic relationship with the US. On the trade in goods and services, the picture is good. Technology flows that with the removal of sanctions, as was said by Ambassador Shashank, things will improve. And of course, in the area of investment, the US companies are very keen to invest in India. They see India as a good place to invest in, a secure place where there is a rule of law, there are courts, where the rulings can go even against the government, unlike in certain other countries. So the picture is quite bright overall.
The picture is bright. I'm going across to Sheetal Sharma for her opening comment.
Tarun, if we look at the India-US trade relations or general relations between India and US, this is the most significant time and the best ever period that we could see in terms of the flurry of activities that has been happening between both the countries. And it is not just the trade or the figures that we look at, that what they aim to achieve by 2020, or it is $105 billion dollars trade towards happening, balance of payment or in favor of whosoever. But it is a kind of very strategic and diplomatic relationship that we are now heading towards establishing with the US after a long period of time that we were driven by that Cold War mentality of labeling, seeing ourselves as non-aligned or strategically aligned or militarily neutral. There are so many terms floating in so many different camps,
so
and
India
set
is
of
behind, put all that behind now.
Absolutely, people trying to fit our actions within those frameworks which were driven by those kind of ideological divide years. But now what is very interesting is that India has made attempts, or India is now moving out of all those frameworks of understanding the world into that kind of division into camps. And the second thing is the trade which also involves many of the sectors related to health, space missions, energy, environment, clean energy, science and technology, education sector. All these things are potential areas where we have been having very good and strong relations with US, but at the same time there is a potential for opening up and deepening and widening these relations.
Potential opening up and deepening the relationship exists. I am going across to Shashank. Sir, I would like to ask you, what do you see happening with the LEMO or the Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement being signed? Do you think that trade will get a fillip?
This is a tricky area because not many details are available in the public domain. So there is a little bit of disquiet that while on one hand, yes, the time is ripe for India and US to go for strategic partnership, especially when we find that all terrorism is coming out from our neighboring country, that is Pakistan, and is affecting most of the neighbors within Asia and also distant countries like the United States. Therefore, there might be possibilities where India and US have to work together to see that this terrorism is stopped, is curbed effectively. And secondly, we have also seen lately that the Chinese have been trying to selectively develop a partnership with Pakistan, whereby they would kind of come to an agreement with the terrorist elements that Chinese interests are not hurt, Chinese are not trained in the Pakistani training factories, but and Chinese in return would put a huge amount of money, $46 billion in Pakistan, but they would not mind if other countries are destabilized in the region. So therefore, India has to protect itself on both fronts. That is a centerpiece of terrorism which is in Pakistan, and secondly, the very cynical approach which the Chinese have taken despite being a member of G20, despite being member of BRICS and on so many other organizations. Okay. India is also a partner country.
Yes, Ambassador Balakrishnan, how do you see this whole LEMOA and India-US relationship emerging?
See, the LEMOA agreement is a logistics arrangement that permits both countries to carry out operations using their military assets. So that will of course help the US military carrying out operations in the Indian Ocean area. It could conceivably help us to carry out operations in the Pacific.
Yes, but why are people linking it to the trade?
Now, as far as trade, defense trade is concerned, the other agreement, the SISMO and the other agreements are more important because they relate to the guarding of secret information. Yes. Now, there is a lot of potential in defense collaboration, manufacturing between India and the US. From F-16, F-18, there is interest on the part of the US companies to transfer a good deal of the F-16 and F-18 manufacturing to India.
Yes.
Now, this will require the other agreements to be followed through. Now, India has huge requirements of defense equipment, in all kinds of defense equipment from the air, the land and the sea. So, as far as the US defense industries are concerned, if we move ahead with the other agreements with the US, the framework, and the present trend continues, we can see a large shift of US defense manufacturing into India.
You mean
which will be mutually beneficial.
It will contribute to Make in India in a way.
It will contribute to Make in India. It will contribute to producing a lot of components and subsystems and even complete assemblies for our armed forces within India.
That's an important comment coming from Ambassador Balakrishnan. I am going across to Sheetal Sharma for her comment on this issue.
On LEMO, as I had earlier said that we had a habit of seeing our relationship with US in terms of alignment with which camp we are talking about. There are one set of people who are very skeptical about the entire thing, and they are going up to the extent to say that we are surrendering our sovereignty and one day India will be a base for like the 700 plus bases what US has all over the world. But it is not just in the favor of US. India also tends to benefit because we hold many joint exercises together. And as the details of the entire agreement have not come, the only thing that superficially appears is its exchange of logistics.
Like to wait and watch and wait it out.
Absolutely, the finer nuances of it are certainly to be seen and studied.
Okay, I take your point. I am going across to Mr. Shashank, and would like to asking the Secretary of State of the United States welcomed GST and said that it would prove indeed a fillip to trade between India and America once GST comes into effect. Do you share that enthusiasm and do you see that happening?
Well, that is our expectation also, that once GST is approved by required majority of states in the country and it is finally brought as a constitutional amendment, there should be at least 1.5% of GDP increase
Yes.
in the country, and so already if we are doing 7.5, so we should reach almost the double digit figures. But the point is that that will be basically on the basis of infrastructure development and the government expenditure. Now, where it comes to the individual private sector companies, we still have the other kind of issues which need to be sorted out. That is the high rate of interest in the Indian banking institution, the high labor cost, a lot of floating of the labor and technical manpower from one company to the other. And then finally, we have had cases where people have taken past loans and have not returned them. So, like Vijay Mallya's case is very much there in the minds of many of the partners
Sir, and one more quick
abroad.
comment from you before I move on to the next panelist. It's about the US-India Agriculture Alliance. There was definitely a case of green revolution in the 60s. Do you see the Agriculture Alliance moving forward, because India, so to say, has got 125 crore people to feed and needs better and better or intensive methods of farming by the day?
Actually, in agricultural sector, we have set up such a good example before the whole world that we are getting leaders from Africa, Latin America, from all over the world coming and telling us that you please come and take over land packets in our country,
Yes.
send your manpower, train our people. And India has offered very generously that we can give them complete picture of their soil conditions from the satellites, and this will not be only in order to promote the Indian corporate sector, because when America gives this kind of assistance or China gives, then it is seen that the Chinese companies will benefit or the American companies will benefit. In India's case, these countries know that their people will benefit.
Okay.
That is the Indian
So India
model.
is seen as more as a friend. I'm going across to Ambassador Balakrishnan for his comments on these two issues.
The agricultural sector first is an area where a lot of reforms are needed in India. There are a lot of inefficiencies in the sector. To give you one example, if you see the price the farmer gets for his produce and what the consumer pays in the city, there's a huge gap. So right down from the farmer which produces the product up to the retailer who sells it to the consumer, there's a lot of inefficiencies down the chain. So we have to make sure that we have the reforms which enable the better integration of agriculture with the food processing and the marketing setup, so that the farmer gets a better share of the final price of the product. Now, many of the issues in the agriculture sector are with the state governments. The central government's powers are not entirely with them to make these changes. For example, the commercialization of agriculture is something we have not gone into,
Sir,
unlike
do you
Brazil
think that
and
would be
others.
an impediment to US-India relations or trade in that? Because they say India has a lot to learn from US, because they say 50 years ago even the US were fearing that if agriculture, people engaged in agriculture go down, then there will be, what will people do? But what happened? People engaged in agriculture in US went down to single digits, but still jobs were there. So
Yes.
do you think India has a lot to learn from US in at least that front, and with the Agriculture Alliance that will become possible?
You know, it's something which it's inevitable in the future. As we go into the WTO regime,
Yes.
we will have to phase out agricultural subsidies. So the only way you can subsidize farming in the future will be to actually pay the farmers a kind of negative income tax.
Negative
You
income.
cannot fix the prices of inputs and outputs anymore.
Okay.
So our farmers will have to compete with the US, the Brazilian and other farmers.
Yes.
So we cannot follow the approach of Japan or the EU in trying to protect the farmers like this. What we have to do is to really make the reforms so that the farmers can become modern producers
Yes.
and have a share, higher share in the final
Okay.
value of the product.
Okay, I take you.
No, that's something which is, if we do that, you will see, another huge.
So do you see a cooperation between the two countries?
Well, I think we have to learn some lessons from the US. But
Yes.
what's happened in the US is there are large commercial farms. Most of the farmers
Yes.
have moved out into other sectors.
Yes.
Now, we don't want to follow that model. Neither do we want to follow the model of Brazil, where everything is agriculture is commercialized.
Yes.
So what we want is a system whereby the farmers are part of a modern business enterprise.
Yes.
They have access to credit, they have access to technology, they have access to marketing, and they don't have to worry about who will take their final product.
Okay.
The whole thing is something like modern cooperative farming is a must for India.
Okay. I'm going across to Sheetal Sharma. Sheetal, if you could tell me, specifically if we speak only of farming, there is talk of real-time pricing or real-time pricing all over the world and farmers being able to sell products in the global market, America has started implementing it as the fourth industrial revolution, or as we call it, starts in America and slowly will get to other countries. Do you see that India and America partnership in agriculture has a lot of meat yet left into it, and a lot of things are set to happen in this partnership?
Tarun, if we compare the agricultural sector of both the countries, there is a lot of difference. The difference arises first of all from the nature of the land holdings that we have in India and in the US. There, despite the fact that we have single digit number of people or population engaged in agricultural sector, the agricultural output is much higher per hectare as compared to Indian agricultural output. Yes. The second is India approximately has 37 to 40% of population in the primary sector, or particularly agriculture, and there is a lot of problem of disguised unemployment in this sector.
Yes.
That is why, you know, much of the dependence on agriculture, the harvest and all these things get so diffused that you cannot actually access the amount of income that is being generated by the field. Now, the second issue is that if we for a while do not talk about the nature of land holdings, because then we have to really alter the entire social
partnership on the technology front.
On the technology front, it is the technology front, particularly post harvest, there is a lot of potential for India to learn, because despite the fact that whatever the farmers are growing, you have seen one case in Maharashtra recently, the farmer was being given 5 paisa per kg for, I think, the onion produce.
Yes.
And he brought the truck back and he dumped it in the
So you mean
field
in terms of real time mapping of say prices across the country would help?
Absolutely, it would help. At the same time, I would like to bring in the aspect of food processing and storage, particularly, where much of this cannot happen in India and does not happen in India because of the lack of infrastructure. Say, for example, White Revolution succeeded only much because of the connectivity and the road infrastructure development.
Okay.
So by the time you take your milk from A city to B, the milk gets spoiled.
Yes.
So we have to really look into the factors that can actually contribute towards the technological
I take your point. I am going across to Mr. Shashank. If we see, America principally has been critical of India on high tariff on imports. Do you see that as a flashpoint between the two countries going forward, or do you think that wouldn't be much of an issue?
Well, if you go for the average tariffs, in India's case, perhaps they would not be that high, because there are many areas where our tariffs are low.
Yes.
It is only compared to, let's say, the ASEAN countries or many countries where the average tariff also has come down.
Yes.
And they have been able to integrate their economies very closely.
Yes.
In our case, since we have not been able to, we have just introduced GST. So there are a lot of inefficiencies in manufacturing and in transportation of goods from one sector to the other.
Yes.
So once we are able to integrate all that market,
yes,
I am quite sure that even the peak tariffs
yes,
should come down, because in many of the developed countries you find that the peak tariffs are so high,
yes,
because they don't want to encourage in any manner any production, any manufacturing anywhere else. It is only the primary products that they are willing to give you the whole market.
So you mean there is a double speak by developed
So there is a
nations.
double, and we
Okay.
need to
Yes,
take
Ambassador Balakrishnan.
Yeah, the thing is that the main problem between the US and India as far as agricultural export is our regime of subsidies.
Yes.
Now, tariffs one side, but what we have support prices, we have prices for fertilizer, we have support prices for food grains. So the issue is that we are interfering in the market mechanism by fixing prices, and that is something which the WTO, as far as the WTO agreement is concerned, is not acceptable. Whatever subsidies are there, there is a green box. So if you, for example, you say everything will be going in the market and we will compensate the farmer through a direct beneficiary transfer, that's okay. That will be in the green box. We can remove all the subsidies, farmer will produce whatever it is, and whatever we want to help him can be a direct cash transfer. So that is perfectly legitimate. That will be in the green box. The US and no other country can protest that, and that will remove one of the main problems. Last year, you remember, we had a big fight over agricultural,
Yes.
the agreement on agriculture. Well, that's the kind of approach we need to follow, and we've done the reform as far as LPG pricing is concerned. It has worked. The farmers who are really poor, they are the ones who should get the subsidy, the benefit, not all kinds of people who are in the middle taking advantage of price differentials. So I see that if the present government extends the direct benefit transfer scheme to the agricultural sector, I think there is a lot of potential for improvement.
Okay, that's it. But yes, Sheetal Sharma, both on tariffs, where America has been raising questions, do you see that as a flashpoint or an emerging flashpoint between the two nations?
As far as tariff, as Ambassador Shashank pointed out, it is a sector specific area where we are actually talking about, and particularly I would like to bring in the pharmaceutical,
Yes.
and which is also not just integrated with the tariff but also with intellectual property rights, and most of the pharma
Yes,
companies.
that was the cause of a lot of dispute between the two.
Absolutely. And you know, the issue is that India right now is at a stage where it actually needs to collaborate with the world economies, particularly say US in this case, and at the same time learn from many of the best practices models which have been which have been successfully adopted. But at the same time, what happens, say for example, if we look at even with European Union, we had a problem in high-end car imports where the tariffs were actually, the duties were double the amount of, and there was a clash between the low-end car producing companies, Hyundai, Toyota from the East Asia, and European Union, Audi, Mercedes and all that. So we have to really see that which sector actually we are talking about, because much of the consumer market in India is the middle class market,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
at the lower rungs of
Yes.
consumption bracket as compared to the higher ends. And say for example, in the case of pharma, we are one of the source countries for generic medicine to Latin America, to Africa and most of the country, and we have been able to bring down the cost of many of the
Because of the generic
life-saving,
market.
yes, life-saving medicines up to the 1/10.
But America is a huge market for all these products.
America is a huge market, but then the property rights related to the research, development and IPR issue that is hanging
Yes.
between is a bone of contention between the two countries. And the second point is about the agriculture that you discussed about. The entire panel is yes of the opinion that we are, despite being a traditionally being agricultural country, we have not been able to set many of the things right in the place, that right from the nature of the land holding up to the last consumption level
Okay.
of opening the seal of
Okay.
a particular pickle.
Okay.
There are so many
I take your point.
levels at
I'm moving
which
to a
we
round
can-
of closing comments very quickly, sir. Mr. Shashank, I would like to ask you, and you could also end with that. Ambassador Balakrishnan spoke of the fourth industrial revolution at a time where America wouldn't need to export jobs outside because robots would do the job inside, and that is a real possibility. It's been discussed at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and every major panel is now discussing. Do you think things are going to change drastically in the next 10 years, and that could disturb things because it makes America more independent?
No, you are posing the question as if India is against all development, all
Not
technological
against-
upgradation,
Yes,
and so India is one of the laggards.
yes,
No, I think what we need to do, because we have seen that Chinese
Yes.
are also using robotics.
yes,
They are also trying to bring out all kinds of efficiencies. So what Chinese have done, they have said that after becoming WTO, they had to undertake onerous responsibilities.
yes,
That is what they negotiated in opening up their markets to the West.
yes,
But still they were able to create those because of the large labor market, large consumer base, etc., they were able to overcome those disabilities. So India has to see that yes, there are going to be these challenges for the future, and there will be destabilization of countries in the Middle East, which are traditional suppliers of oil and gas to us.
okay.
Whereas Americans would be gradually depending on themselves.
Because
So
of
we
the
have to
shale oil revolution, as
so
we
we
see.
have to find out what will be the best method. So we
Okay.
should not be only catching up with
Okay.
the others.
Okay.
A stage has come
I take
where
your
we
point
need
very
to
quickly.
go
Bhaskar
along with the
Balakrishnan,
others.
your closing comment.
Digital manufacturing is going to come in because it offers many advantages. Firstly, you can customize the product. You can make smaller volumes of production according to very specific requirements. You can modify the product. It's all electronically controlled. The thing is that instead of the people who are working on the assembly
Okay.
line, you will require people who are skilled in operating electronic systems. Different types of skills will be required. So this is bound to come in. It's a disruptive technology.
It's a disruptive technology.
It's not as disruptive as, for example, the ICT is. This is, this can be handled, but I think governments need to look ahead and be
Okay.
ready for it.
Actually, totally out of time. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on today's discussion. So as we see it, very ambitious target in sense which was put out by both the Indian Commerce Minister of maybe say growing trade to 5 times. We need to see how this is done because of the way technology is changing, because of the way robotics or say 3D manufacturing are changing. Things are going to disrupt things actually in the next decade or so. We need to see how this all happens. Thank you so much for joining us on today's discussion. Thank you.